Up to 10,000 protesters have descended on Victoria's Parliament House in a massive show of force against vaccine mandates and the state's proposed pandemic bill. It was one of the biggest marches the country's seen during the pandemic, attracting speakers including former Liberal Party MP Craig Kelly, who joined a mob that took direct aim at Premier Daniel Andrews.
A sea of faces, young and old. More than 10,000 protesters marched through Melbourne's CBD, the Victorian Premier in their sights. The rally was in opposition to the state's vaccine mandates and proposed pandemic bill, which would allow the Andrews government to impose health orders even after the state of emergency ends next month.
There is no lease agreement with the government where it owns this body. This is mine, and that once they take this, I've got nothing. Protesters
took their children and pets. Many came prepared with homemade signs. One man even carried a fake gallows, complete with a hanging noose. After trawling through the city, the march came to a stop at the steps of Parliament House, where organisers had a chance to address the mob.
You tell the story, Victoria. Do we want their power-grabbing pandemic management bill? No! Hell no! Hell no!
Liberal turned United Australia Party MP Craig Kelly even flew to Melbourne to support their cause.
It has broken my heart to see how this great city and this great state has descended into totalitarian hell.
Today's protest falls on the same day vaccine mandates come into effect for Victoria's construction workers. Those same rules will be put in place for residential aged care workers from Monday.
There are many stories that I've heard where people have lost their absolute livelihoods, their jobs.
The pandemic bill could pass into law as early as next week. Natalie Yannidis for 10 News First.
Nat Yannidis joins me now from Melbourne. Nat, it's becoming increasingly difficult for journalists to even cover these protests.
That's right, Chris. We've been covering anti-lockdown protests in Melbourne for around 6 months now, but it is becoming more difficult as mainstream media is being targeted by these protesters. Often camera crews will be singled out and have abuse thrown in their direction, and as a result, much of the footage that does go to air now comes from social media or online streams. It's just too dangerous at the moment to move too far into the crowd. Now, it is important to note that as far as protests go, this one today was one of the more peaceful and well-organised rallies, but there is still a risk which can restrict news crews. Chris?
Turning now to our developing news, thousands of protesters are rallying in Melbourne again today, angry over the mandatory vaccine and the state government's proposed pandemic laws. Andrea Carruthers is there. Andrea, you've been there for a while now. What's the latest?
Well, Danica, there'll be at least 10,000 people here. We are still outside State Parliament. We understand the crowd will start to move around the city at some stage. There's obviously a number of signs here, things such as sack Dan, kill the bill. All of this, of course, in response to the vaccine mandate, but as well the proposed pandemic legislation by the state government. But I'm joined now by Peter Credlin, Sky News host. She happens to be down here at the protest. Peter, you've been down around here for some time now. What sort of vibe are you getting?
Well, it's extraordinary, Andrea. Don't let anyone tell you that this is a professional activist class. I mean, there's just a lot of mums and dads, ordinary people. In fact, a lot of migrants. I've spoken to people that emigrated to Australia from places like Bosnia, and they said this is not the Australia they came to. I spoke to a couple that have reactivated their European passports. They fear this legislation. A lot of people from country towns. I spoke to a woman just before from Shepparton, who's come to Melbourne because they think this is something to protest about. I think there's a fear that a lot of Victorians don't understand how far this bill goes, but we had 60 QCs sign an open letter, including Jack Rush, who was the Royal Commissioner into the Black Saturday inquiry here, so very eminent Victorians who say that this legislation, it takes away liberty. And I think Victorians have suffered enough over the last 2 years, Andrea. They are pretty angry. They're respectful. It's a peaceful demonstration. But there'll be a downplaying on the commercial TVs tonight, I suspect, of the crowds or the type of protesters. But I came down here for the purpose myself to see who they are, and they are ordinary Victorians who've had enough.
Are you surprised by the size of the crowd and just who is here?
I'm surprised. I've been to plenty of protests in my life. This is not a professional activist class. This is mum and dad average. I mean, there's prams, there's kids, there's dogs, there's elderly Australians, elderly Victorians. I think this is a really grassroots movement now.
Thanks very much.
The Victorian government could amend controversial pandemic legislation after thousands of people protested in Melbourne's CBD. Pressure has been mounting, with some protesters turning up at the home of key crossbench MP Andy Meddick on Friday night. 4 changes could be made to the legislation, including making it easier to appeal detention orders and boosting parliamentary oversight. The proposed laws would empower the Premier and Health Minister to declare pandemics and enforce health directions.
A now familiar sight stretching around Melbourne's city blocks as frustrated and at times furious Victorians take to the streets.
Just standing up for our rights, you know, it can't go on anymore. It's just gone too far.
Our state's lost its soul.
Sack Dan Andrews, get him sacked, get our freedoms back and get back together in unity and no more segregation.
Demonstrating against the Andrews government's proposed pandemic laws, which would strip the power to declare a pandemic off the Chief Health Officer, handing it to the Premier and Health Minister instead.
I think he's using this crisis to gain too much power and too much control, and I'm very fearful for the future for my children.
I don't have a problem with the bill, I have a problem with sections of the bill. Look at other ways that maybe, you know, one person doesn't control everything, then, you know, I think that would be probably the best thing for Victoria.
Critics say the bill goes too far.
Melbourne's wet and windy weather has done little to deter the crowds, thousands upon thousands building inside the CBD.
They're worried about the implications and what the government's intending to do with this bill.
While the opposition is preparing a raft of amendments to the bill, the government has the crucial support it needs from crossbenchers to pass it when debated in the upper house. Andrea Crothers, Sky News, Melbourne.
A large contingent of motorcyclists joined thousands of protesters in New Zealand's capital on Tuesday. The group were rallying against the country's latest COVID-19 rules, demanding the government roll back compulsory vaccination and lift restrictions. Some protesters flew flags showing support for former US President Donald Trump. The peaceful demonstration saw many holding signs with messages like "Freedom" and "Kiwis are not lab rats." Others accused media of being fake or of lying. The mostly unmasked protesters marched through central Wellington and congregated outside a Parliament building nicknamed the Beehive. Police and security personnel numbers had been beefed up, and all but 2 entrances of the building were closed off. Speaking to reporters inside Parliament, Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said, "What we saw today was not representative of the vast bulk of New Zealanders." New Zealand has struggled to fight off a highly infectious outbreak of the Delta variant this year, forcing the Prime Minister to move from a strategy of elimination through lockdowns to living with the virus with higher vaccination rates. She said last month that teachers and workers in the health and disability sectors would be required to be fully vaccinated against COVID-19. The move has invited criticism from people calling for more freedoms and an end to mandatory vaccines. New Zealand has some of the lowest COVID-19 case and death numbers in the world.
What we saw today was not representative of the vast bulk of New Zealanders. And so actually my message would be to them, and it would be to say thank you. Thank you for being vaccinated. Thank you for doing what it takes to look after one another. What we saw today wasn't reflective of you and of New Zealand. Now, we're at over 89% of eligible New Zealanders having had their first dose of the Pfizer vaccine. And I think they know and appreciate that we're on a road to be able to open up more, to having a bit more of that normality back. And yes, it's been a tough journey, but I think they can see that what we've done has been on behalf of everyone.
So you basically said this is going to be like, well, it's almost like, you probably don't see it like this, the 2 different classes of people. If you're vaccinated or if you're unvaccinated, you have all these rights. If you are vaccinated...
That is what it is, so yep.
So you basically said this is going to be like, well, it's almost like, you probably don't see it like this, the two different classes of people. If you're vaccinated or if you're unvaccinated, you have all these rights. If you are vaccinated...
That is what it is, so yep. Yep.
Billy, what are you up? Do it! Bring him on! Padova live in questo momento. Zajedništvo naše smeta i zato je ono važno da ga držimo. U tome nas niko ne može pokolebati. Ovo je tek početak borbe. Borba je pred nama, ali nije potrebno da se sad svako snalazi za sebe. To samo vodi do toga da nas je sve manje. Moramo biti skupa, moramo se skupa boriti za svoja prava protiv ovoga bezakonja.
Ljudi o prisilama i ucjenama. To se događa svakodnevno. Mediji, dragi naši. Tako je, nisu naši, oni su u službi, nisu nas. Možete priče svoje prodavati, ali mi smo ih se najeli, nama ih je dosta. Znate zašto? Postoji nešto što vi nikada nećete moći nadglasati, a to je usmena predaja.
Maju ke depan yang produk warna pink. Produk warna pink yang produk pink di depan. Ya oke. Tuh, udah bisa jalan? Ya, jalan. Tuh. Maju. Ayo jalan. Oke, jalan.
Welcome to the show. You're watching the Fox Business Network. We begin with this. Look at this. Thousands of government workers, cops, firefighters, sanitation workers, city workers went out in force protesting vax mandates in Los Angeles. No jab, no job.
One of the strictest vaccine mandates in the country has taken effect in the city of Los Angeles, and hundreds of people are not happy about it and willing to gather. Scott Reif is in Air 7 HD with a look at a protest in Grand Park. Scott.
Yeah, Philip, I apologize for the delay here. We're having a technical issue, and I can't really hear you throw it to me. But we are over Grand Park in downtown Los Angeles, right across from City Hall. And we see a large group gathering and more people coming here, anti-vax protesters. There's a rally against mandatory vaccinations, law enforcement, firefighters. We've seen a lot of signs, no forced vaccinations, stop the mandate. Of course, one of the things they're concerned about is December 18th of this year is the deadline for those vaccinations for city employees. If they don't have it, they will be terminated. A lot of mandates getting into restaurants and other things of that nature, other venues, and people are protesting the fact that they have to be vaccinated to do that. A lot of signs out here, a lot of American flags as well. What I don't see are masks on the individuals out here, so they don't feel that masks are really important as well against COVID-19. But the crowd will show you, it looks to me like at least 1,000 people, maybe more, are gathering here for this rally.
Breaking news, protest near the Golden Gate Bridge. The impact on traffic at this hour and the crash that happened just minutes ago.
Plus, it's a booster shot rush, the message to vaccine providers statewide to avoid a winter surge.
We want this to end. We don't want this lingering forever.
It's been over 4 decades, but her loved ones never forgot her. Now, the break in the case in the murder of a Bay Area woman.
And what's going on in Oakland? A string of shootings in just a matter of hours. The chaos that had concert goers running for their lives.
And he's helped thousands of struggling veterans, but he isn't finished. How a Bay Area veteran is taking his mission to the next level. Good evening, I'm Elizabeth Cook.
I'm Alan Martin. Let's get right to that breaking story happening tonight on the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah, Chopper 5 is flying over an anti-vaccine mandate protest, and we're told a crash just happened. You can see police have closed most of the northbound lanes, although cars are still able to get through from one lane of traffic. But you see another car pulled over to the side there. Unclear, though, if that was the vehicle involved in the crash that we're talking about.
Well, at one point, they had 2 lanes of traffic open. Now it looks like they have completely shut down traffic going in the northbound direction. It was narrowed into that one lane, but that's a Bridge District truck. There was an orange cone in the one lane of traffic. So if they're going to escort traffic across, which may be the situation here, but you can see how a crash might have happened as people were slow. That's a cleanup truck, and we've got some video of the crash that happened earlier as they try to clean up the mess, see how many cars it involved. But this is the video from earlier, because there it is. There's the crash. The vehicle hit the Bridge District truck, clipped it, as a matter of fact, right in the front. So that's why things got closed off. That's not adding, that is adding to this mess. It's not helping it at all.
Yeah, and that area can be a bottleneck anyway on just a normal commute day. As you can see, several protesters, or not several protesters, almost a couple hundred protesters gathered near the visitor center there, and it looks like, again, close up of the car, it was turning into, as the road was expanding to allow more lanes of traffic to flow, it looks like it clipped the bridge vehicle there.
This protest got started about an hour and a half ago, because this is a nationwide protest being led against the vaccine mandates, being led by first responders across the country. I believe we have a traffic map that can kind of show you the residual impact of what's going on. The video there freezing up, but you can see what's happened to traffic in the city as they try to make their way northbound.
Late today, a federal appeals court temporarily blocked the Biden administration's rule that millions of workers get vaccinated against COVID-19 or be tested weekly. Several states and groups had challenged the rule. As of today, nearly 68% of people in this country, 12 and older, are fully vaccinated. CBS's Michael George is in New York with more. Michael?
Jamie, good evening. Today, many children got their first dose right here at New York City's American Museum of Natural History. Across the country, there's a push to make it easier for kids to get the vaccine. Kids at this Massachusetts vaccine clinic were greeted with giant stuffed animals.
Big puppy dog.
And toys.
There are friends to help vaccinate kids.
It's all meant to help kids like 5-year-old Lana feel safe. She made it through without crying.
You can hurt a little.
But many parents are shedding tears of relief as their children finally get some protection against COVID.
Sorry, I'm a little emotional. I just wanted him to be safe.
While some parents are choosing to wait, demand for Pfizer's pediatric vaccine is high. At this Marin County, California middle school, they're expecting more than 1,000 kids on the first day alone. This comes as some Western states are still seeing high numbers of COVID cases, including Colorado.
We do have less than 100 ICU beds open.
And NFL star quarterback Aaron Rodgers, who recently tested positive for COVID, lost a sponsorship with a healthcare company after comments he made about the vaccine. Originally, Rodgers said he was immunized.
Yeah, I've been immunized.
But it was later revealed he received alternative treatments and refuses to get the shot due to an allergy and over an unfounded fear it could cause infertility.
The great MLK said that you have a moral obligation to object to unjust rules and rules that make no sense.
That's good news, but we need to go faster. That's why I'm taking steps on vaccination requirements where I can. Already I've outlined vaccine requirements that are going to reach millions of Americans. Federal workers and contractors, medical staff caring for our veterans at VA hospitals, and our active duty military reservists and National Guard. Today I'm announcing a new step. If you work in a nursing home and serve people on Medicare or Medicaid, you will also be required to get vaccinated. More than 130,000 residents in nursing homes have had, sadly, over the period of this virus, passed away. At the same time, vaccination rates among nursing home staff significantly trail the rest of the country. A study showed that highly vaccinated nursing home staff is associated with at least 30% less COVID-19 cases among long-term care residents. With this announcement, I'm using the power of the federal government as a payer of health care costs to ensure we reduce those risks to our most vulnerable seniors. These steps are all about keeping people safe and out of harm's way. If you walk into a government office building, you should know that federal workers are doing everything possible to keep you safe. If you're a veteran seeking care at a VA hospital, you should not be at a greater risk walking into the hospital than you were outside the hospital. And now, if you visit, live, or work in a nursing home, you should not be at a high risk for contracting COVID from unvaccinated employees.
While a federal appeals court temporarily blocked the Biden administration's coronavirus vaccine mandate for large businesses, the president is encouraging companies to move forward with the vaccine or test rule for workers.
Well, some companies have pushed back their deadlines while this plays out in court. But today, a crowd in Cynthiana gathered to protest one company's stance. LEX 18's Sophia Millar spoke with them. It's tonight's big story at 5:30.
People have been trickling in and out of this protest throughout the day. The group of about 30 emphasized to us that they are not against vaccines. What they're against is the government requiring employees get the COVID shot or face termination.
In no way do we disrespect anybody that has been affected by the coronavirus. We fully acknowledge that it is real and it is a disease. All we want is our choice on how to handle that personally.
Christopher Cooper is a 10-year employee of manufacturing company 3M, but he says he's at a crossroads right now. He wants to keep working for the company, but not if they're going to require he get the coronavirus vaccine.
If they're not willing to honor our choice, I don't want to work for them anymore.
In September, President Joe Biden announced a vaccine mandate for federal contractors requiring all workers be fully vaccinated by December 8th unless they're legally exempt. Federal contractors do not have the option to get weekly testing under the guidance. These 3M Cynthiana employees say they feel like this mandate is a violation of their constitutional rights.
We've worked through the pandemic, we were heroes then, and now we're not even offered a choice to even be tested. We just want our choice to work and not have to worry about this.
We reached out to the 3M corporate office. A company spokesperson responded saying 3M plans to comply with the federal vaccine mandates. The statement reads in part, quote, "We believe it is important to get our workplaces back to normal as quickly as we can. Vaccines are the most effective way to prevent death, serious illness, and transmission. Like other companies, we have seen some sites have employees expressing their opinions publicly. We value our employees and hope they will choose to stay at 3M, end quote. In Harrison County, Sophia Millar, LEX 18 News.
And back in the U.S., President Biden's vaccine mandate has been halted by a federal appeals court, but health officials continue to stress the importance of getting vaccinated, especially as temperatures drop for the winter. ABC's Elwin Lopez has the latest on the COVID front tonight.
A federal appeals court has halted the Biden administration's vaccine or weekly testing requirement for businesses with 100 or more workers, calling the mandate staggeringly overbroad. This delivering a setback to one of the president's signature public health policies. The decision comes as health officials prepare for a possible surge of COVID cases as temperatures drop.